all set and ready to go.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. We will begin the West Hartford Public Safety Committee meeting. This committee meeting will be available for live viewing on the WHCI YouTube channel. This is a virtual meeting, and today is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025, and the time now is 8:06 a.m. The meeting is considered now called to order. And the first order of business under business items. Oh, before I do that, let me recognize everybody around the screen. Pardon me. We have Town Manager Rick Ledwith. We have Counselor Tiffany McGinnis. We have Counselor Alberto Cortez. We have Deputy Mayor Ben Winograd. We have Mayor Sherry Cantor. We have Chief, let me make sure I got everybody here. We have Chief Priest and his team over there, which is ACJ Silver. I see Assistant Fire Chief Bob Grimaldi. I see Deputy Emergency Management Director Bob McHugh. I believe there's also DC Adam Pacheco. I think also I see Lieutenant Rocco Ludada and Community Support Andrew Eccles. I believe Emergency Management Mike Peruccio. I think the rest of you guys, Dan Savelli, Jeff Dufresne, pardon me if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, Bob Hilborn, and did I miss anyone? Chief Priest?
You got most of them, Madam Chair. We're good. We have some of our deputy chiefs in as well. Chief Sinatro, Chief Smith are here. It's an important meeting for us. We're proud to be here, and thank you.
Okay. And then on PD side, I believe we have Chief Riddick, we have AC Rickabon, we have AC Tara. I believe I also saw some of the finance people. Did I miss anyone?
Yeah, we have Lisa Newton and Patty Lewis, Madam Chair, and I think you caught everyone else.
Okay. All right. So we will go ahead and begin. Counselor Cortez, I don't see your camera, so I'm hoping that you're on. Yep, there you go. Okay, wonderful. All right, so we will proceed to approval of the minutes, but before I do that, I do want to just express that it was a very nice event, great event last night that was sponsored by the Exchange Club. And again, I just want to give a shout out to the honorees, which is firefighter Ryan Kelleher and police officer Robert Pottsy, I believe Chief Riddick referred to him as. So again, congratulations to the two of you, your family, and the entire PD and fire department. You guys do God's work, in my opinion. You're angels in disguise. All right, so we'll move to the approval of the minutes as written. I did not see any errors. Correct me if I'm wrong. And may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. All right, motion for the minutes is approved and accepted. Next item of business is our proposed budget. I'll turn it over to Town Manager Rick Ledwith to start us off, and I know that fire is going to go up first. And just for a matter of correction. On my agenda, it says we're going to start with page 11.1, but in actuality, it's page 8.1. All right, so I'll just turn it over to you, Mr. Ledwith, to kick it off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone, and appreciate your opening comments. Madam Chair, last night's event was an outstanding event, and it's a community event. You know, it wasn't our departments recognizing our firefighter of the year, police officer of the year. It was our exchange club, a tremendously important community organization here in town who annually recognizes the importance that our public safety plays in our community. And we're pleased to have the opportunity to talk about our public safety budgets today. You know, both our police and fire departments, as we know, are at the heart of our community's well-being, providing critical services that protect the lives and the property, and really the overall quality of life for all of us here in West Hartford. And as the chiefs review their budgets, we know this year was a challenge. We know we have to balance fiscal responsibility while also ensuring that our police and fire departments have the resources necessary to respond effectively to emergencies, certainly addressing public safety challenges, and really adapting with us as with the growing needs of our town. And those needs are evolving as our town continues to grow, particularly as a regional destination, and whether it's law enforcement, fire suppression, emergency medical response, disaster preparation. Our investment in public safety really is an investment in the security and stability of our growing community. We did have an event earlier where a question was posed as to whether we were oversized in our police department, fire department. And unequivocally, the response to that is no. We have growing needs. We'll talk through those needs as we move through both budgets. But comparing a size of a community of our size to neighboring communities or communities of our size and needs, I would say in both aspects with both police and fire, we do have more needs, and we have roles that we need to address. We're not going to be able to at this point in this budget, but I think you'll hear that from both of our chiefs, both on the police side, fire marshal's office side as well. So, and beyond the law enforcement and the firefighting aspect of their roles, the traditional responses that folks associate with our police and fire department, we all know that they play an integral participation in really the fabric of our town. And their presence at every community event ensures that residents and visitors can enjoy our events with confidence, knowing that they're going to be safe. And we take pride in hosting over 60 organized events annually. And I'm not sure there's a comparable community nearby that does as much as we do from a community perspective every year. In these events, you know, we all know the signature events celebrate Juneteenth, Pride Festival, Holiday Stroll, Fire and Ice, our parades. But beyond these, we have almost as many spontaneous gatherings, you know, and I can go back the last 3 weekends. We had the Democracy Rally last weekend. We had the Pro Education Rally the weekend before that. We had the Women's Rights Rally the weekend before that. And, you know, all of these events reflect our town's active engagement with global and local issues. And folks know that here in West Hartford, you have a voice, you know, and every voice, you know, whether what side of that voice or opinion we may fall on, you know, you have the opportunity here in West Hartford to express that, and you can do that safely. So whether we're talking about a planned event or an impromptu event, All of these necessitate careful coordination to ensure the health and safety of the tens of thousands who join us annually at these events. And our women and men of our police department and fire department really take pride in serving and protecting all of us. And when we're at these events, I know I could speak for all of us, we can see and feel that appreciation of our residents, and they know they are safe. And a great source of pride for me is when I'm at that event and you just watch, and I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times, where a resident or a visitor of any age, from young children to seniors and everyone in between, walking up to a police officer, walking up to a firefighter. Thank you for being here. Thank you for protecting us. And that just goes so far for all of us. We're pleased to talk through both of our budgets this morning, and the needs that we have to continue to do what we do best, and that's provide that foundation of safety here in West Hartford that I really believe is unmatched by any community. So appreciate the opportunity to open this morning, Madam Chair, and I will, through you, turn things over to our fire chief and his team, who will give an overview of the fire budget. And I think what we would do is do the fire budget, and Chief, if you can respond to the capital improvement portion of your budget as well. And then we will turn things over to Chief Riddick and follow that same order. So through you, Madam Chair, I will turn things over to Chief Priest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Chief Priest with the fire department here, checking in to find out whether or not you are able to see me in presentation mode.
Yes.
We good?
Yes.
Okay. Standing. Well, good morning, everyone. Like to be consistent with how I approach this. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands where we're headed today. Thank you very much for your comments. Preparing to introduce this. So I will talk today quickly about some fire department background, our statistics, cover our accomplishments, talk a little bit about our future, our budget commentary. I'll talk about our goals for next year, and then I'll leave adequate room to take questions. What I'd really like to start also is with my appreciation and thanks, not only to the staff in the room, but the staff who are out working in fire stations every day, 365. As far as the staff that's with me today, this is obviously a show of support, not only for the fire department, but it's also a show of support for our town council, our citizens, and especially all of our senior team that helps with the budget process, like Interim Finance Director Newton and her team, and Town Manager Ledwith, and the Public Safety Committee and the council as well. But today is also about our citizens. As I prepared my remarks for this, my goal today is to be an advocate for the fire department, is to take my training, knowledge, skills, experience, education, and also to educate everyone in our community about the fire department and what the impacts of our budget is. I wanted to follow up on the town manager's remarks about the overstaffed or things about that nature. And the first thing I'd like to acknowledge is this, to our citizens, but also to our policymakers. I recognize that a community is the one who decides the level of risk that they're willing to accept regarding fire, medical, rescue emergencies, right? And they also then decide the amount of service and the level of service that they wish to fund or provide to the residents. As you can hear from the town manager, we take that very, very seriously. And my job is not only to advocate, as I said, but it's also to educate and make sure people what the consequences, both positive and negative, are from either action or inaction in our operations or our financial structures. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. I'll move fairly quickly through it as I normally do. At least the slide deck, I'm very comprehensive, but here we go. So background on your fire service. Also, again, talking to the folks that are not here today, I know this committee is very understanding of what we do, but I want to make sure that anybody who might review this at a later time understands about their fire department. So I'll be working in the order of the budget book. It doesn't reflect any sort of priority in terms of what I think is more important in the department, just how the budget book structures. There are 8 financial areas. As the chair said, we're working off of page 8-1 in the budget book. But I like to consider that we have 5 functional areas. And what that looks like visually is a fire administration, an emergency management division, an operations division, a fire marshal's office, and lastly, a training and support services division. What you see in terms of italics and underline just means that those are the actual financial areas that in our budget book. So let me talk about these just very quickly. So in our fire administration, sometimes referred to as management, this is all of our clerical, information technology, our financial, our budgetary, and our HR functions. This is at 95 Raymond Road here. In terms of emergency management, also housed here at fire headquarters, this is our planning, our preparedness, our host community programs, our CERT team, the creation of a local emergency operations plan, and a significant amount of our preparedness grants come to this office, as well as our emergency operations center, which serves the entire town and all divisions. Our operations division, it's clearly very visible division, stations, 5 stations across town. We perform firefighting, EMS, and rescue as our core functions. In our fire marshal's office, they're responsible for our inspections, our plan review, and our fire investigation function there over at Town Hall. And lastly, our training support services division, which is encompasses our stations, our maintenance, our mechanic. We're unique in that we actually have a full-time mechanic. We're very happy. He's a very busy fellow. And also our training division, which is here in headquarters, and we have a community support officer as well. So that's the functions of the fire department. What I'd like you to think about is how all of these come together underneath this concept of an all hazards approach. We have to be prepared and ready at any time for any emergency that's out there, obviously with wide deference for our law enforcement colleagues and their responsibilities. But as it pertains to the fire department, to take an all hazards approach, we really have very different responsibilities across our divisions. And you've already read probably that we have needs and personnel skill sets. I'm very passionate about being the fire chief. I like my title. I know my folks do, but I really am starting to push harder on the idea, at least for the consumer of our services, that fire department is a misnomer. There is much more that we do for this community outside of putting out fires. So our statistics for last year, we did 10,162 calls, which constitutes a 4.4% increase. But what I wanted to do is show you what that looks like over a 10-year period of looking between fiscal year 2014 and current date. We've got a 168% increase in our volume as far as the fire department is concerned. In recent years, we've stayed very consistent with our EMS volume. It's about 67% this year. That's a slight tick down. So our fire related calls are up, but I would consider it to be consistent with previous years. In terms of these next statistics coming up, the asterisk merely says that these are types of calls that we do to show the seriousness and what it is that we're doing in general categories. We can break it that much further. So MI stands for myocardial infarction. So 13 times there was someone in the town of West Hartford who was actively having a heart attack. 134 strokes. 70 cardiac arrests, 4 of which were traumatic, meaning that it was a result of a car accident or some other type of trauma that put them into that situation. 253 head injuries, 321 motor vehicle accidents, 10 of which required extrication, 304 rescues, which is a kind of an encompassing term, whether it's elevator, removing somebody from, any type of space where they're trapped. And then our fire activity, we had 239 fires, which is a classification of our calls. That can be small through large, but I wanted to draw a comparison to previous years. In 2023, it was 201. In 2024, it was 210. So when we look at that, that starts to constitute what we would say a 5% increase between, 2023, 2024, but it's a 14% increase as you move up. But overall, when you compare 2023 to 2020, it would have been 2022, my apologies. But overall, what I'm saying is that we're looking over the last few years about a 20% increase in things that we classify as fire activity. I now have a screen up that just talks about fire departments are often measured in our response data. You see some highlights right there. This is our current year data. 5.26 minutes is what we on average are. And in comparison to last year, I'm pleased, and I'm looking at what looks like a very small reduction in a reduction in our response time, meaning our performance is improving slightly, but still improving. And I'm very pleased to see that. I'll have more on data in a minute. So here's the, if I move away from data and I just wanted to talk about what I thought about it, I would say it's a fast response. We're a busy department. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about it, but you can see we have a volume of serious calls, and there are a lot more. There's a lot more that we do than just fire. This is anecdotal, but I can tell you this. I'm really proud of the men and women that we have doing this job. I get so many compliments, whether or not it's at an event or whether or not it's about a medical call or a fire that was put out quickly or our community support officer. I really truly believe that West Hartford has superior capabilities, and it's my job to continue to advocate for them. So our accomplishments, we have a lot of them listed in the budget book, touching them very briefly. Pleased that we've made our senior staff replacement, Chief Silver's joining me. That was a key position for us. We've made numerous promotions as a result of other retirements. And I'm very happy that we're down to 2 vacancies in the department right now. For the first time in a while, we were actually fully staffed, but due to a few retirements. So that's I'm very proud of that, because that means that folks want to come to West Hartford Fire and they want to stay in West Hartford Fire. We've got 300 people plus trained by our CERT team. It's great kudos to our emergency management. That's a lot of folks over the last few years. We've also started a medical resiliency coordinator position. As an example of the things that she's doing, she's preparing our community for medical hazards and trying to prevent medical issues. She's working on a fall program right now so that we can help some of our residents prevent having to call 911, actually prevent falling first. We're finishing up some grant-funded training programs, especially around rescue topics. A big thanks to Deputy Chief Pacheco and others who've been working over the last few years to develop our core competencies as it relates to rescue. Chief Silver's brought in a great new credentialing program for our promoted positions, meaning we establish a path of training and competencies that we want all of our supervisors to have. This is excellent work, excellent forward progress. Thanks to the foresight of the council, we added our fire inspector that was authorized in last year's budget. He's joined us, and I'm very happy to show you that we've got a 40% increase in our new construction activities, while also at the same time, we've had an 11% increase. You can't see it on the slide. I apologize, but that says at the bottom, an 11% increase in our statutory inspections, meaning at the same time we're seeing this new volume of construction, we're also able to make modest progress in trying to improve our statutory inspection position. We've onboarded Deputy Chief Pacheco. Congratulations on his promotion. I'm sure he's very excited for all the new work that he has, but that's a complicated process and a wide expanse of responsibilities, and it changes the department. We've onboarded a new spare apparatus. Again, thanks to the council for that. That's improving our position with our heavy equipment. Our community support officer has headed up both a basic and then last year an advanced kids camp, which was well received by our community and by the youth. And also we're teaching our emergency medical responder program now for the 3rd year in both of our high schools in West Hartford. We're very proud of this program. There's so much other tremendous work, but I did want to show quickly what this means. In 2024, 39 students were enrolled in the class, but 31 of them passed it. And that's pretty, those are amazing statistics for a first-time pass rate. I have a breakdown of what the class looked like as well. And in 2025, again, it's a very popular class. We're up to 44 enrolled, and I look forward to sharing with you great successes there. In past years, I would have gone through different sections of the budget, but I thought this year it might be better just to go with some commentary. So it's a $15.7 million proposed budget, which constitutes a 2.3% increase. I would consider it to be level funded, except for our contractually obligated wages, and we've made other adjustments to try to make sure that that stays at the level fund that you see here. I have a deep recognition for the challenges that are facing the town financially, and I've already given my kind of commentary, but the reality of it is I'm here to advocate, but also to be understanding in the process. So I'm very sympathetic to our leadership and to our citizens who are watching the financial structures and the budget requests come forward. And I'd be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge that. So moving into next year, I feel obligated both in a required way, because our budget is lean for moving forward to deal with new programs or not new programs, but regular contractual increases on software or anything. I feel obligated to make some cost containment measures, but also as a good fiscal steward of the fire department, I'll be taking and looking at other options on how I can try to contain costs moving into next year. But very importantly, it's my job to try to protect and maintain and provide similar services right there. As I said before, this community has chosen the level of risk that it wants to tolerate and the amount of staff, and it's my job to be able to continue to move that forward. So I give a great credit to the town manager this year. He said to me, "I want you to be real in your budget presentation." That takes courage to unleash me with some thoughts. I'm sure he's rolling his eyes right now, but anyways. So I will tell you this. You know, I may use the words concern and concerned, and I want to really make sure that I talk about those definitions as they pertain in my mind. So I think concerned means I'm actively thinking that there's increased risk in the community. I'm telling you something really bad is about ready to happen, and that is not the intention of my PowerPoint presentation today. However, I do have some evolving concerns, and where that primarily sources from is the idea of evolution of a community. You'll note that my slide does not say growth. What it says is evolution. I think our community is changing, not just because of the fact that it's growing, it's just because we are a vibrant community. Times are changing, and I'll go a little bit more later into some other aspects of that. But what I'm watching is an increasing call volume. I'm watching our FMO, our fire marshal office capacity, both in the short term and the long term, getting a little bit challenged. And what that causes for me is you know, a real starting to desire a much better approach towards planning. And yes, the first time that, you know, I think I'm really actively getting out is I do want to start talking about the staffing of the West Hartford Fire Department in the operational areas. So what are the considerations that go into my mind? So the first is I wanted to tell you there's a couple of approaches that fire chiefs take. The first is we can take a data-informed approach where I put a bunch of numbers out there and I try and convince you with data. The second is where I approach you with either an emotional or a common sense appeal. And where I am right now and my progression is, you know, I'd like to be hybrid. I'd like to bring some data to you, but I also need to stay common sense with you and make sure that we're acknowledging that this community does have choices in what it wants to do with its public safety services. I'm really appreciative of all of not only our citizens, but our council and the town manager. You have always listened to me, and I hope that you will continue to, even when I am long-winded in my budget hearings. So what is the basis for where I form some of these concerns? What is going through my head? What am I looking at? So the last, sorry about where it comes out, but the last significant staffing change in the West Hartford Fire Department operationally was in 2002, where there was a reduction of 16 positions that were taken out as a result of an agreement where two ladder companies were kind of closed, and that was done through attrition. I will tell you this, at the time, there was no medical calls being responded to, maybe very serious, and they were doing about 3,000 calls a year. I offer no opinion as your current fire chief about whether or not that was the right move. I usually put that out there just as a simple data point. Secondly, in 2009, we started a revenue program where our marshal's office began to recover some fees for occupancy permits, but also plan reviews. 2016, our paramedics started being able to charge for the services that were provided. And what we've done since that time is we've added 2 non-operational FTEs and some part-time staff. So great, we're moving in the right direction, but we have not significantly added to our operational staff. When the paramedic program was added, there was an assistant chief position designed to go with it, but it was consolidated, so that position was never fully realized. And then obviously, as any good chief, I do look to my neighbors to find out whether or not there were better models and things that we're doing and how we could do it differently. So what are the implications of evolution? They are across all of the divisions serviced by the fire department. We talk about call volume and we might shrug and say, all right, well, calls are going up, just work harder or do more with less. Well, the reality of it is what happens is when you increase the call volume in the fire department, you're also likely or more likely than not going to increase your response times to the emergencies. The more calls you're going on, the less available you are for the next emergency. And also what that does is that impacts the training that's happening on a daily basis in a fire station. Firefighters require a lot of training to keep up their competency. We're also watching occupancy changes. This is very visible. We're watching new and unique construction being proposed in the community. But what this also affects us is how are we going to get into those buildings? Do we now vertically have to go 4 floors? Are we moving around? These do affect service. But do we have the right resources on hand? We can manage residentials, but what happens when the occupancy level changes? I'm watching this as part of how I inform where I think the department needs to go. We're also watching changing hazards. There's a proliferation of lithium-ion batteries. I don't want anybody to get scared about them, but obviously, when not treated properly, they have a rapid rate of combustion if you're not using the appropriate chargers. In other matters, we're watching climate change, which is going to directly affect our emergency management program as well as our operational folks. So what does this mean for me? This makes me start to wonder about, what our planning and administration capacity is to not only find funds for this, but also what does it look like in the future? How do we plan for this growth? So again, now going to a few data points. Our fire marshal staffing analysis in 2019 suggested 5 FTEs. We have made great strides. We've addressed it with one full-time FTE, and we've supplemented it with our line member inspection program, which is using line members on overtime to come in to try and work in our marshal's office. But I want you to look again at what happens with these 2 data points that I put in there before, which is this new construction is going to turn into new statutory inspections for us, which we're capable of handling. I just want to make sure that we have the right people in place for that. So what that means is, in addition to staffing implications, I'm in the process, along with our marshal's office, of evaluating exactly how many occupancies we have so that I can provide very good data to the council over the next few years about what resources are needed to staff that. So as I dig into data just a tiny little bit more, these are the things, right? I gave you the average and I focused you at the top of this particular slide before. I just said the average was up. And I don't want to go crazy statistical on you, but I do want to say this. An average takes into consideration your outliers. It takes into consideration a 0-minute response time when somebody walks into a fire station and we queue up the call and we arrive at the same time. It also takes into consideration when there's some very non-emergent call that can be handled and it takes us 20 minutes to get there because there is no emergency. But if you look down at the bottom of the screen, what we talk about is a 90th percentile response time. And what that means to us is 90% of the time, how are you going to perform? And that is probably in our industry the best metric for deciding how well your organization is performing. And I want to draw to your attention those 2 numbers. So if I look at 90th percentile, I am watching a slight increase, a modest increase in our overall response time as it pertains to the 90th percentile. But specifically, I'm looking over at the priority 1 medical calls and a very slight uptick in the 90th and how often it gets, we're at 5.77 minutes versus last year, we were at 5.22. While there's a ton that goes into data analysis, what I will tell you is that could be an early indicator of a high utilization rate of our EMS program that is taking us just a few extra seconds to get into calls. This is a study from 2019. What do I put this up here for? Just showing you that if you step aside from the pandemic, which obviously kind of threw off the trajectory, that somebody else a long time ago in 2019 really was telling us, look, your community's great and it's going to start to grow. And that is something that I take into consideration as I look at forecasting and into the future. So things you'll hear from me over the next few years, the asterisk up here is a reminder to me to say, Greg, this isn't the year to be pitching, tons of new staff. But it is time for me to start telling you what is on the horizon or what you can expect to hear from me over the next few years. Management and administration support, making sure we're looking at those planning areas and leveraging financial opportunities and making sure that we're starting to, or not making sure, we really need to start taking and fragmenting operational supervision and planning. So Chief Silver's area really should be focused on the work that we're doing out in the street. And we would also need to address our administrative things. We're starting to grow and become more complex as a department, and we need more additional administrative support in headquarters. As I've said before, we are going to need to look at our fire marshal's office and looking at the staffing and how we deploy it. But this is a very West Hartford specific part now. I want to make sure that we're sustaining our community support. This is where we've developed such great relationships with our community. I don't want to see that being sacrificed over the next few years. I want to continue it. During the pandemic, we operated a 3rd duty ALS unit in the North District. It worked very well for our organization, but that would require adding staffing to make sure that we're able to do that effectively. For many years, we've actually had the same amount of positions for the amount of people that we're contractually required to have on duty. We've never gone above and beyond that so that we can start to avert overtime when somebody goes to training or takes time off. There's a training implication also as we start to grow, to make sure that we have the right amount of training staff available so that our people are getting the best and most current training. And then lastly, industry standards start to suggest that at multi-company incidents, we want to make sure that our incident commander is working within the span of control so that he has the appropriate aid available for not only emergency, but non-emergency activities. But I am proposing, or will be discussing more about how we make that type of a multi-purpose position in this organization so we can sustain things like residential inspections and making sure that we have safety presence at all of our emergency incidents. So through all that, I do have a few goals and priorities. I know they're different, you know, the definitions are different, but in summary, we have an upcoming contract negotiation with our firefighters. It's important to make sure that we treat our people well. It's important to make sure that they're supported. I'll be working with American Medical Response, our transport provider, to make sure that they continue to provide a great level of service here and look for any opportunities to improve our EMS program. As I said before, I feel obligated to sustain our outreach and keep that connectedness with our community, not only with our youth, but to make sure that we're putting out great fire safety mechanisms, because that is the first and best way of helping the community, is to stop fires from happening, to stop emergency medical incidents. Now, I don't like talking about any sort of growth in this particular year, but I am looking and hoping to work with our school system about how to elevate our emergency medical responder program with our emergency medical technician, which is just a higher level of certification that's a little bit more utility for our youth. Lastly, we have to make sure to sustain our statutory inspections as we're moving forward and making sure that we focus on our facilities as well, which I'll touch quickly towards the end of the presentation, but our CIP does increase there. And here's, I am trying to get to the end of it, but you know, the last slide there says, hold the line, it's what it says down there. And let me tell you a little bit about what hold the line for me next year means, because a picture does say 1,000 words. You'll often see something like this go out with one of my media releases, and you might look at that and say, wow, that's a little fire. Why do you need all those firefighters for that? And here's what you don't see. So before I click to the next slide, I have to tell you, at the time that I'm releasing media releases or allowing photographs to go out with this, I do not release any photographs inside of that particular residence to show you what was stopped, because it's not appropriate to share ahead of a fire investigation. So any of the future slides are not directly related to any of these, and they're anonymous. But I want you to see what happens and what our firefighters are doing behind the scenes. This is what we are stopping. We're preventing this from leaving those 1 or 2 rooms and taking out the entire house, because we have great response times. We're a well-trained fire department. We're stopping it from going further. This is a kitchen. It stayed in the kitchen, right? These are the things that our firefighters are doing. When you see these one-line structure fires, and people, you know, might say, oh, you don't have the same fires that a neighboring community has. Well, this is what we're stopping. We're preventing you from seeing that on the front page of the Current. Our firefighters are out there on the highways. They're motoring public, right? They're doing extrications. They're saving deer, right? Everybody chuckles a little bit, right? We're saving a deer, but what happens if that was a child? What happens if that was a walker? We need to be ready for that when that happens. So there's so much more that this department does. We also rely on our neighbors, and our neighbors rely upon us. We go out into those communities, we bring our training and experience, but when we are tied up, we bring in our neighbors, and we have to be able to continue to do that. There's more. We work so collaboratively with our police. We provide other programs. What you see on the left side of the screen is a police officer as part of his medical recertification, learning about putting on tourniquets. That's a CERT member from our other division who's helping to serve as a role player. The council authorized some significant expenditures for that mannequin you see on the ground. It's outstanding that we have that. These are 2 tactical paramedics working with our police department. These are the programs that I am hoping to maintain in perpetuity for the department, to make sure we're providing the best service, not only to each other, but to our community. I want to continue to see these outreach programs, a turkey drive, people. I want to see us out in these community events, standing by. They're there to provide for medical, but they're also there to talk about what a great department you have. On the left, this is our community support officer organizing multiple members of the department, taking and training all of our high school students in hands-only CPR. On the right is our community, our kids camp. And what you see right there, I love this picture, right? That's a firefighter sitting there just kind of jaw-jacking with a couple of the kids in the camp, probably talking about life, probably talking about what they can do to join public safety careers. I want to see these programs continue. So in closing, I know that there are some other requests in the CIP, which I guess I'll just stop at that bullet point real quickly. I don't have any slides on my CIP, but the most significant ones moving into next year is an increase in the amount of funding for the fire training tower. It was budgeted, it was estimated in prior years. There is an increase, a significant increase request in there so that the budget gets a total cost of 1.7 million based upon current standards for training towers, but also to address current construction costs. We have a normal annual request of 336,000, which supports things like EKG machines, chest compressions, and we are looking to make sure that we have some of our rope rescue equipment is brought up to speed as well. I have it in my budget book because I think it's important. I'll talk quickly about, Chief Riddick has some police department radio equipment in there. I'm highly supportive of that. It's just where I laid out in my budget book. And then the last thing that I'll talk about in next year is you were kind enough to approve a new fire apparatus for this last year, which we haven't. We are now trying to make sure that all of our reserve apparatus are what we would consider to be turnkey or ready to go, so that at any moment in time that we call in additional personnel, they can jump right onto the apparatus and go. So there's a $125,000 budget request in there that accounts for some very expensive equipment like air packs to make sure we can just jump in that fire truck and go. And or if we suffer a mechanical breakdown, we can move personnel right over to that without taking an apparatus out of service. So my last few bullets here really say, our evolution as a community and the complexity of our department and what we've taken on, the level of service that we've chosen to provide, it's going to continue to require some multifaceted support. And in order to continue to provide the same level of service, we too as a department have to evolve with our community. My last bullet is I really want to thank my team. They do a ton of work. I get recognized a lot for what happens in the fire department, but I could not do it without them. And lastly, Rick, it's probably, you don't really want to go crazy thanking your boss right at budget season, but I really do have to tell you, I appreciate the fire department's relationship with you, both personally and professionally, because of the fact that you do listen and you have allowed us to put things out on the table that I know you think is going to improve our community. And you're in an intensely difficult position with our council who will make some very tough decisions, but I appreciate all of your support. And with that, I really hope we can continue to be this, 8th best place and going for the 9th and the 10th and for as long as you can. I'm proud to be your fire chief. Those are the things that we live by in the fire department. And I would be glad to take any questions. But after that really long presentation, I'm sure everybody's all set. So with that, that concludes for me.
Thank you, Chief Reese. You took the words right out of my mouth, so I don't even have to say it now. That was beautiful, though. Beautiful presentation. Thank you for all the work that the fire department does each and every day, not only to you and your leadership team, but to the entire crew and also to the men and women who continue to save lives and protect property and just do all the good work the fire services do. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to the committee members to find out if you have any questions. And I see that Councilor Cortez has a question, followed by Councilor McGinnis. So I'll turn it over to Councilor Cortez first.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. So Chief Priest, I make my notes here, and I was getting ready to start with tremendous growth in this town, right? So now I have to change everything up. So that being said, with the town is evolving in a very rapid pace, over the past years, and I appreciate that you guys understand the assignment, not just you on the FD side, but on the PD side, right? It's like we have expectation, we're tremendous growth, but we ask you to run a very lean budget, and you guys always do. So, I just want to say kudos for what you guys do with the heavy ask that we do, right? So you guys come to us with not wants, but needs. All these stuff are needs, and I just want to say that I appreciate your report. You've answered a lot of my questions, with your presentation. You're a forward thinker, and and we have to be careful of what we ask on the town side as well. When we ask you to run a very lean budget because again, we're growing at a rapid pace. The numbers for the budgets keep going up. But with that evolvement, right, in the town, or how we're evolving, we do have to be mindful that we do have to make adjustments, and that next year's, that there's a cost to that. There's a cost to us asking you to run very lean, so in a year from now or 2 years from now, when your your needs are higher, we have to be mindful on how you guys balance that, so especially, I've mentioned this before, with the fire marshal department, I think we're very, very lean on the fire marshal department. And that's something that we have to be careful, that we have to understand that next year, if that department grows by one or two, understand that what we asked you of this year. So thank you for your presentation. So it's more of a thank you, and I see you, I see what you guys do, and this stuff is wants. I wanted to be clear that there's not any want in there, but these are all needs. Training is important. So training tower is not a want, it's not a luxury item, it's a need item. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Councillor Cortez. And over to you, Councillor McGinnis.
Through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say, one, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all of the hard work that you all put in keeping our community safe. And, everything starts with public safety. If we don't have public safety, then, the rest of it doesn't really function if you're not safe. So just thank you for the presentation, and thank you for all the hard work you've done in this town, and especially over the past year.
Thank you, Councillor McGinnis. To Chief Priest and your crew, I would say this. I do have one question, but I would say this. Going into the future, and I know you've touched upon this, my concern for fire, especially with the number of events that have occurred maybe mid 24 into mid 25, unlike previous years. So for instance, the car fires. I've never seen car fires until mid 2024 up into 2025. I know I mentioned one on our committee meeting, a car fire in the Stop and Shop parking lot. And then a few weeks ago, I also saw another car fire in front of the CVS on New Britain Avenue. And I know that's a collaborative effort, because PD shows up and then the fire department shows up. And also, when you mentioned about the lithium batteries and the risk that those pose going into the future, and stacking up, your men and women and the training and the equipment. And as Councilor Cortez says, presenting this lean budget and some of your concerns. My concern is having enough personnel. And I know that with the training that they receive, that they're able to, I want to say maybe multitask, for lack of a better word. They are able to transition. But what happens, and I know you got a bench, but how deep enough is that bench? Especially when you have a staff that's lean, and I'm taking into account the growth of the town. But as we move into our future years, what do you anticipate? Do you think we have enough, or do you think we're just right there? Or what would you think is sufficient? And I know we're all mindful of our taxpayers. I know everyone is probably screaming to the mayor, to the town manager, and to some of us, don't raise our taxes, don't raise our taxes. But when we want good services, especially excellent services, some of that stuff is going to have to be raised in order to pay for all of this. So can you just kind of touch upon that? I know I've said a lot, But I'm more concerned about as we grow, we know that things cost more, there's expenses. Sometimes we deal with supply chain challenges, but at the same time, if our men and women are sick or if there's some kind of life events, sometimes things happens in threes. How do we feel as a department that we're fully staffed with the resources that we have, and going into the future, are we comfortable? What more can we do? And it's a preparatory uh, plan. I know I've
Madam Chair.
said a lot of people behind you that can jump in.
No. So here's how I'd like to approach that question. So first of all, thank you very much. Asking a fire chief about staffing, is kind of like walking along the top of a razor blade, right? You can go either direction, with different stakeholder groups, whether you're talking to policymakers or you're talking to national standards, or you're talking to, my colleagues, from the labor side. So here's how I'd like to answer the question first and try to be, concise enough for this meeting. So the first is I'd like to point you back to this. A community sets the level of risk and the level of service that they wish to provide. There are no compelling things. There are no laws that require you to have a certain amount of firefighters on duty at a certain amount of time. However, there are national standards and there are benchmarks that indicate roughly how many staff you should have based upon the type of fires that you have and the services that you provide and the time that you get there. So the Fitch report did a pretty good job of talking about the idea of staffing in West Hartford looking in 2019. So if I was going to give you a term that I thought that we could move on into some other discussions, what I would talk about is an effective response force. It's how many people can you get to the scene of an emergency in a required amount of time to perform the tasks that you think have to happen for that particular type. For the purpose of this discussion, what I will tell you is I think we are running at what I would consider to be a very higher unit hour utilization, maybe like a fancy term for telling you that I think we're running a lot of calls and I think we're doing a good job of handling what we have. And I think we can go a little bit into the future. But when I start talking to you about a third ALS unit, which involves adding some additional staff out in our northern district, which comprises about a third of the town, those are still cross-trained firefighters. And when they come online and they're on duty at a particular time, they can become part of an effective response force that goes to, fires and other emergencies. So what I would love to do is offer that, while not being too evasive with the question, fire department staffing is it really is worth the time to sit down and try to carve out like a meeting or an educational session where we can be much more dynamic and talk about the if this, then that, how many does it say here? I just don't want to take any more time away from this particular meeting while at the same time trying to give you at least the best answer, which is I think we are okay. But to Councilor Cortez's point, I'm not asking for it this year, but as we start to think about what the next years are, your fire chief will be in front of you starting to ask for additional staffing, both in management, operations, emergency management, and fire marshals. And I'd love the opportunity to discuss with that a little bit more in depth at a different time.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. All right. Are there any other questions from anybody else? Deputy Mayor or Mayor Cantor? No? Okay. All right. So we'll move on to the police department and Chief Riddick. So I'll turn it over to you, Chief.
All right, thank you. Unfortunately, Jarida, whatever that little animal was has reared its head again. So can you pull up the version that I sent you, the last one? Full screen, awesome. And if you could, Jarida, can you go to, I need you to turn your pointer into a laser. If you go to the left, you'll see a pencil, bottom left, laser pointer up top. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. If you can go forward, Gerardo? This is our FY16 proposed budget. It is a 4.9% increase. Just understand, as far as our policies and our process, we send out and solicit from our personnel, our directors, and within the PD, what their needs and wants are. Internally, we make our own cuts before we submit to the town. And as you can see here, we slashed our 117,000 and approved about 111,000. As far as our personnel, if you remember some earlier conversations we had in January of 2024, we were down about 15 officers, and since January of 2024 through now, we've hired 22 officers because of some terminations, well, a termination, a resignation, and some people who retired. Going forward, we're anticipating 4 additional vacancies, so it's a lot we have going on there. So as we go forward, and as Chief Priest had spoken and town manager earlier, we're very cognizant, and I personally and all of our entire command staff and our officers here, but I will speak about yours truly, coming from an economically challenged town years ago with my previous job. I get it. I understand that even a dollar increase to some people is life-changing. Many of us are blessed to be able to go out to dinner, spend a couple $100, and we have disposable income to do that. Some folks don't. $1,000 can mean choosing between food and medicine, and that is not lost upon yours truly. Have lived it. I've had family members, including my brother, going through a very serious medical condition. So I really do understand that. So when we put this budget together, and our opportunity to go forward, we understand, and we're very cognizant of that. I also want to thank the town council, the mayor, the town manager, for your understanding, your willingness to try to balance all of that. So I just want to put that in perspective. Next slide, please. I think it's very important. I'm going to have to go back just a little ways to 2020 and the police accountability bill. If you can recall, we had numerous conversations with public safety meetings and town council meetings regarding this. And I told you back then, and by the way, I'm in full agreement with many of the changes that were proposed, and they will improve policing, but it comes at a cost. And I told you then there was going to be a legacy, and there were unfunded mandates associated with that. There's a cost we have to incur now because of the psychological exam, which is a good thing, but there's a cost associated with that, 5 years. Drug screening examinations every 3 years. There's a cost associated to that. Mandatory de-escalation training, there's a cost associated to that. And significantly, again, these are all positives. Managing the body-worn camera and dash cam programs, there's a cost associated to that. First, the infrastructure and the personnel to review, which I'll get into later. And then, lastly, mandatory police accreditation. Again, a good thing, making sure that every police department in the state of Connecticut is adhering to standards, and all of us are required to get to Tier 3 status, which I'm very pleased to say West Hartford did Tier 2 and Tier 3 about 1.5 years ago. Next slide, please. So that being said, a couple mission critical things. IT, this is not a request, and I will say it's a borderline respectful demand. We cannot go forward without another IT specialist. If we do, it will impact our operations on the technological side. I've tried to lay the foundation previously with some of the requirements from the police accountability bill. The IT component of that, understand, although we had dash cams before, now every single police officer has a body cam associated with that. That impacts IT. There's a cloud, there's storage, there's so many other implications. We also have our NDTs, our mobile data terminals inside our vehicles. There's a lot associated with that. And mission critical. Respectfully, non-negotiable. I need this. Need, want, all the above. I cannot stress upon you more than that. You have never, ever seen me come before you in such a passionate, demanding way. But I'm telling you, we are bursting at the seams. We've been trying to patch things together. I've been in constant communication, well, frequent communication with Jared from IT. He's on board. He supports this need for here and our police department. So I don't want to beat this too much, but I want you to know the importance of this. We must find money in our town budget to fund this position. Next slide, please. And that is Eric smiling. That we made him smile because normally he's crying, and he moved all the boxes and everything else out of his office. Next slide. These are 17. If you go to the top, Drider, with the pointer, please. And just, I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but just understand these are 17 things here. The big thing in IT and in policing too is having some level of redundancy. And you'll hear, the really smart IT people talk about that. Well, these 17 areas here are areas that are vulnerable for the police department because we have zero redundancy. We have one point of failure, and that is Eric, and that is not sustainable. Jared's been very helpful. His folks have been helpful, but they're busy with the Board of Ed and the rest of the town. I hope Eric doesn't leave, but I've begged him not to. He gets another job. God forbid he gets sick or something else happens. We have no one else that can step right in and take over these duties. And that is not a good way to run an organization, period, but definitely when it comes to public safety. Next slide, please. Accreditation manager. So everything that you see in yellow were things that were placed inside our budget and were subsequently removed. Not casting dispersions. I just think it's important for you to see the things highlighted in yellow are our requests that were not granted. As you remember earlier, the accreditation is part of the police accountability bill, and to have a civilian accreditation manager is very, very important. I can say that we can get through it and have been temporarily with the captain, lieutenant, and sergeant sharing some responsibilities. But as far as sustainability and best practices going forward, this is not optimal. But we can get through given the tough fiscal times of the next upcoming fiscal year. Next slide, please. And this is just a rehash of the police accountability bill and the importance and need based upon that. You can go to the next slide. Again, the dues and the police management was removed. Again, we get over that. It's just $250. Health and wellness. We had a young, if you guys remember the public safety meeting a couple weeks ago, a young man came talking about a cadet program. So some of this funding for the juveniles and the youth would come from here. Part of the pillars from the 21st century policing that came out in 2015 recommends health and wellness, and some of that money for police officers. You see that funding there for that. Well, next one, professional standards. There's no change there. Next slide. Thank you, Gerida. Animal control. We did get funding for a part-time ACO. We would like to eliminate the part-time position, and action states to eliminate, have the part-time position become a full-time position, which would be an additional increase of $32,000, $296. That is our request. Next slide, please. And there is Rob and Kim. Don't they look lovely with their little animals there? I'm tugging at your heartstrings right now. I think we've seen, if you paid attention to the news, to area towns. There's a couple of area towns who've been in the hot seat recently regarding our animal control division. And we've also had many people passionate about this in the town of West Hartford. Next slide. And this is very poor slide management on my part. I would gig one of my students for presenting a slide like that. However, it's there. And Gerard, if you go to the left, please, when it goes to the comparables, left, on my left, I'm not sure if it's yours. It says, yes, there you go. So that's West Hartford. We have 2 full-time, 1 part-time, and a kennel. Next slide. Go down 1 level. New Britain, one full-time ACO, one, and they pulled one due to staffing shortages with the police department. Next, Stratford, 3 full-time and a kennel assistant. Greenwich, 2 full-time and a kennel assistant. Middletown, 3 full-time and 1 on-call ACO. Meriden, 3 full-time, 1 part-time kennel assistant. West Haven, 4 full-time and 2 animal care, which is the equivalent of a kennel assistant. Wallingford, 3 full-time and a part-time. Hartford has 3 full-time, and Waterbury 3 full-time. Just some comps so you can see where we're at in our needs. Next slide, please. Records control, another mission critical. Next slide, please. Historically, back in the 2000s, it had 9 employees. Over time, that has diminished down to 5 and 1 part-time. And just think about our world back in 2000 and what it looked like then and where we are now. Gerard, as you hit each, if you toggle forward, you'll see things pop up. If you hit the arrow, there you go. One by one. Okay, you'll see the increase. I know that it's a little small here. I'm not sure if we can make the screen a little wider, the slide. But the increase increased by 5.3%. Next toggle. Subpoenas requests last year over this year and FOI requests have increased 11%. And for further comparable, in 2022, we had 87 FOI requests. 2023, 142 FOI requests. In 2024, 181 FOI requests. So on sheer volume alone, you can see the need for additional staffing and the responsibilities that these women who are just phenomenal inside there are doing. But I want to just break this down a little bit more for you. Just understand that, after with the body cams, the police accountability, one scene in the past, you might have 4 or 5 officers there. There'll be a request for FOIA. You might have 1 report and maybe a supplemental. Well, that very same scenario today, you still may have 1 report and maybe a supplement or 2 written documentation, but you also now will have 4 body cams and some dash cam video that has to be looked at and reviewed. And the records personnel and professional standards people, and with the assistance of Corp Counsel on some occasions, we have to watch every single second of that video to make sure, 1, no medical information's in there. 2, whether it's domestic violence information. 3, even any juvenile references or images or anything. So this isn't something you can mail in. Like, you really have to do this. So this takes, you can imagine, it takes a lot of time. So you have the numerical increase, again, for reference, 87 in 2022 to 2024 of 181. Now exponentially an increase in the responsibilities that we have now. Next toggle. They also have evidence room. You just keep banging these out, Gerida, and I'll move forward. Just keep toggling. You do all the financial reporting for us. You can just keep going one by one. Just hit them. Just keep on going. There you go. And they also handle the payroll and the private duty. $2 million that's brought in 2024, and they manage all of those things. So they do a lot. They really, really do. And we, again, mission critical. 100% need this. Thank you. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of the things that were removed from our budget. As you can see in yellow, a total of $59,000. We had some contractual software increases and the $26,000. This was a want, not a need. And this deals with a lot of our Axon software, our ability to do some additional things. And although we put it inside record control, it's actually something that's utilized in our professional standards division to track sick time. use of forces electronically, do comparables and everything else. So it would be a great addition. But again, that is a want and not a need. And equipment and operation, there was no change. Next slide, please. Needs, we've talked about, and Chief Priest has mentioned, and other people here have recognized. You have heard me come before you in many years past asking for additional police officers. Again, I put it in need, and I do that understanding and respecting the very challenging time of this next fiscal year. So I get it. So that's why this is not mission critical, but it's just below it. Next toggle, please. And you can just tap it. There'll be some toggles there. We have the increased housing with an additional 1,600 units over the next couple of years. And a very good point the town manager brought up during his budget presentation, 1.8 million population within 45 minutes of West Hartford. And this is something, the next thing, management of our sworn replacements for absent crossing guards. As a reminder for some and education to others, we manage the crossing guards, about 40 or 50 of them, but the Board of Ed are the folks who actually pay. This takes a lot of our time. I would love to get rid of this. So if a crossing guard, and many of our crossing guards have some health issues, or a little bit elderly, very experienced folks in the world, and it gets cold in the winter, they have slip and falls, people get sick, and we are required, we have to send an officer. Sometimes that's a mandatory, so someone has to stay at the end of their shift, or we call people in early to cover, so we don't impact our operations within the town. This is, in years past, has been a reason why some people have left our police department, because sometimes we can't plan. This happens at the last minute. They'll call in, a half hour before. This is a problem. I did try to pawn it off to the Board of Ed a couple of years ago. It didn't work, but I'll have future conversations on that. And I won't rehash the next. We've talked about the numerous events. There is no other town our side or city our size that does what we do here. You have to recognize, and we have to recognize, that we are a destination place. In the warm weather, I encourage anybody who'd love to do a ride along with the police department. I will ride with you. If you want to come here on a Friday night about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, 12:30, or a Saturday night, you'd be very, very surprised what you would see. It looks like a nice summer day. There's a lot of people here, a lot of activity in the center. Next slide. These are just some of the events that we have. Next slide, Gerida. We already went over that. And it's important to understand what it takes to get a police officer. It takes a year, period. It's 6 months in the academy, and then after the academy, it's 4 additional months of field training, and then we hope and pray that those individuals will pass. And if they don't, now we fill that gap. Currently, we have 7 officers in the academy and 7 officers in field training. As I mentioned before, we have the 3 vacancies. So on paper, it looks like, we only have 3 vacancies. But as far as operations, the impact is having, the net fiscal impact is 17 vacancies, because those officers on field training cannot be by themselves. They must be partnered with another officer. So we're not getting that full impact of that. And then clearly the 7 officers in the academy, they're not on the street. So we're actually operating at 17 people below our budgeted number. Next slide, please. And again, for comparable, 1923, 12 officers, 1970, 85 officers. Next, Gerida, just keep toggling. 1980, and just think about, I'll just go to 1980. No, I'm sorry, go back. Yep. From 1980 with 124 to 2025, 132. I will just ask everyone to take 1 second to close your eyes and think about the world, what it looked like in 1980. Now open your eyes and look at 2025. and what the world is like now. In 1980, I was, I think, oh my gosh, 14 years old, going to high school. It is now 2025. I'm 58, and I'm the police chief for two different organizations, and I've been here for 7 years, and the world has changed significantly. Had no kids back then. Now I got a blended family of 6 and 7 grandkids. Just for that. Technology, it's incredible. But yet, as far as our increase in police staffing, the numbers are what they are. Thank you. Next slide. Uniform patrol, these are all things that were eliminated. Again, we can get by given the fiscal impact of next year. Understood. So, understood. Got it. Next slide, please. Tap it again. This is an Intel Center. Thank you. For those who, I know some of you have done a tour of our PD, and this is our intelligence center, our West Hartford Intelligence Center. Lieutenant Mealy brought this to my attention a couple of years ago. We were able to get some funding, and the town was really good using ARPA money to get this staffed up with our camera system. This is the infancy stage. This will grow, and at some point we do need a crime analyst or Intel Center analyst to staff this. But for now, we're good. We can make do. But in the future, stay tuned. Next slide, please. These are all the things that were eliminated from our request from the Detective Bureau. We can get by, but as I look on here, if you go to the last bullet, the street cameras, currently have 46. We did put in for additional camera system. Understand when we have a street camera, so one location normally has between 4 and 5 cameras. So when you see 4 cameras, that's actually one location, and the hardware and the labor costs associated with that. Again, the town has been very, very good. We have Vision Zero going on. We have speed cameras coming and red light cameras coming. So we're moving in the right direction. Again, we can get by, but this would be something we'd like to have. Next slide, please. Police training, for those of you who have not gone to the range, we like to shoot in real life situations. So within the confines of this edifice, we can do night shooting and lights using our weapon light systems and the like. The risk management had recommended a quarterly range cleaning, which in the past we have not adhered to, but that's $24,000 that was removed. And then the next bullet, you'll see a $27,000 total. And that's a breakdown of the training rifles, 8 to 10. That's for $8,000. And we have another $6,000 for rifles. That'll be approximately 5. And then the next over here for our weapon system, there's about 20 there at 300 each. The next, the Darcy training. We normally put this money in because we send our officers 3 to 4 or 2 to 3 down to Alabama for top-notch, high-quality training for a week. Live fire situations where they're actually shooting firearms and going through simulated exercises, which is incredible, something we cannot duplicate here. But we're usually reimbursed for that through CROG. So that's not an impact fiscally, but we do put it in. So just so you can see. Next slide. General traffic control, no changes. We're just mentioning Vision Zero. Radio, these things were approved, so we're fine to the radio operating our request. Again, understand this is not just for the police department. This is for townwide, DPW, FD, PD, schools, all of that. And this was approved. So thank you to all of you in finance. Next slide. I will run through this quickly. The capital improvement, again, this would help us to fund 10 additional vehicles. We have got funding for that, so we're going to say thank you for that. Next slide. Oh, those are actually our vehicles, by the way, some of them with that rust and everything. Our training center, and which also doubles as our emergency operations center. As you can see, we have tape holding some things down. The chairs are worn. So again, we're very appreciative that these requests were approved. Next slide. At the end, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. Again, I would highlight the mission critical request that we have here, and also understand that we as administration, we get it, what the town is facing. I want to personally thank Sandra Martino, Chief Riccobon, Chief Tara for their assistance. Sandra put the PowerPoint together, did all the hard work. It makes your job a lot easier when you can think of something and ask someone to do it, and they can make it happen. So we have a wonderful team here. Even though I'm considered the chief, I consider all of us equal because I can't do anything without them, and I feel the same way that they can't do much without me. So together, we make up this West Hartford Police Department, and most importantly, our line officers. But for all of us, each one of our individual departments and our council people and our citizens, we make up West Hartford, and we can't do any of this without each other. So I thank you, and I think I was done in about 23 minutes. Maybe with technical difficulties, and I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Chief Riddick. Thank you for that presentation. Very comprehensive and full of great information.
Can I just add one thing really quick?
Absolutely.
Got my clock going again. Today is actually a great example of why we need redundancy. We had IT issues and tech issues, and today Eric was sick. And if he were here, or if I had the backup, we would have got through this. So there's things that it wasn't a Vern Riddick thing, because I know Chief Priest wants to have fun and say, "Oh, I can't." I'm actually more adept at this than you think. But this is the example of what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do have a question about that, but I'm going to turn it over to Counselor McGinnis. And just for record information, Counselor Cortez is having some technical difficulties. So I believe if he has a question, he'll text me the question, and then I'll ask the question on his behalf. So I'll turn it over to Counselor McGinnis right now for questions, and then I'll ask other counselors if they have questions after that.
Through you, Madam Chair. Before I ask my question, I just want to ask, is anybody else, people are cutting out? You hear people cutting out when they're talking? I'm wondering if anybody else, okay, so it's just my connection. Okay. The positions that you highlighted in red, those are not in the budget that we have, correct? Or they are?
These are additional requests.
Okay.
I do not currently have them. These are all additional requests.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor McGinnis. I'm just going to text Counselor Cortez if he has any questions. And then in the meantime, so just bear with me.
Mayor Cantor has a question. Can she go ahead?
I was going to say that since I can't see. So go ahead, Mayor Cantor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have the interval house embedded advocate that we had and they paid for. I thought that had been eliminated due to funding they no longer are receiving or was going to be. Could you just, I don't know if you can fill me in on that. And then I do want to ask about the private duty fund and the balance. It was the balance there is larger than it was 3-4 years ago. I know there is not a projection for that to grow, except, and I didn't know if interest generated off of that was put back into that fund or it goes into our general interest income. And maybe that being a source of amortizing that, I don't know, but a couple questions.
Yeah, regarding the interval house, that was on their end. You were correct with that, Madam Mayor. Funding and staffing on their end. When we did have it, they deal with domestic violence. They would come here once or twice a week. come to roll calls and be an asset to us, a resource to us. But that has since gone away. But as we all do know, also, although it doesn't directly impact Samantha, we do have a social worker here at the police department now that's part of our budget, who works with us and with social services.
So, okay, so is Samantha doing that work, or is that a bit of a hole for the interval house? I'm just trying to get a.
Again, I wouldn't say it's a hole for us because we handle our business. So it was more of a force multiplier, an asset, an addition for us. It would cut down the red tape to have somebody here, somebody you can just reach out to and get people into a facility that need emergency care, domestic violence situation. So we're operating as we were prior to that. But the relationship is still strong. It's just a staffing issue on their part. And again, that individual was not here every day. It was only once or twice a week.
Right.
But it was nice to have that contact person that actually worked here. That was very, very helpful.
Yes.
And your question regarding the private duty fund? So what's the question? I'm sorry.
So I was looking at the balance, and now I probably it will take too long for me to pull it up on my iPad, but it is now, I think, 520. Yeah, I was looking historically over the last few years of that balance, and it has grown from, I think, 92,000, and now I can't find it.
Well,
yeah,
the $2 million is just what the aggregate that's brought in. The balance is much lower than that. You have CNRE that's taken out of there, other purchases that are taken out of there. I believe some of the salaries of the PJ money is taken out of there. So that's why the balance will decrease significantly. But that's just with the revenue component of it, without the offsets.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just, well, I can ask offline, but it was just, it has grown rather than been decreasing. And I didn't know if that was a source potentially off budget, maybe for IT. I did not know, but we can.
Listen, if we could use it, so be it. It has grown. And if you remember, part of the reason that it has grown is because we have the retired officers who come back and work these jobs in years past, because we did not have this program, the PJ job program in place. Though that was funding the town was losing. Those jobs would go unfilled, and then the vendors would hire private flaggers. So I think we're upwards now about 20 or so retirees who come back and work, and each one of those jobs, the town gets a percentage of that money, which is, I would definitely say, has helped increase that fund balance.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Councilor Cortez has said that he does not have any questions, but he does thank you for the presentation and appreciate the PD, how has consistently presented a lean budget with wants and not needs. Okay, let's see, does Deputy Mayor Winograd have questions or any comments? Are you all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa Newton has had her hand up.
Okay. I don't see it. I'm sorry, Lisa, I missed you scrolling through my screen. I'll turn it over to you.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to make a comment that for police private duty, the accounts receivable balance used to be in over $1 million. And through the collection efforts of both records and finance, we got that down to 600,000. So it's a really great accomplishment. But Madam Mayor, I will look into I'll do an analysis of PPD and how it's gone up or down.
If I can do you, Madam Chair, if I can add to that, I think what Lisa was referring to, there was outstanding accounts that were outstanding, that we didn't have enough staff to work on receiving the outstanding balances. So with our internal records folks, with Sandra working with Lisa and her team. A lot of those outstanding balances were recovered, would also probably contribute to the fund increase. And as far as expenditures, some of our pension is funded out of that balance too. So.
And through you, Madam Chair, it has not increased. It's actually gone down for something. I did find something that I saw it increasing, so I have to find that. But from what I'm looking at, it actually went down a little bit, but it's been relatively stable. But all right, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, so if I don't see any other questions, again, let me just scroll through the screen. All right. Okay, so comment and question for you, Chief Riddick, regarding IT, and it's more probably for our listening audience and why this IT specialist is important and why you're asking for another personnel and why it's critical for the PD, especially now and going into the future. Some people may say, well, you have an IT department, and so why can't that IT department fill in for your IT specialist in the PD? Can you speak to that, please?
As I mentioned earlier, I don't want to speak on another director's staffing, but they have the Board of Ed to staff, they have the town to staff, DPW, and everything else. In addition, there's different security clearances when it comes to the police department as to who can look at things and who can't due to state and federal regulations. You need somebody here. It's up by comparison, okay? In Waterbury, when I was the chief there, again, Waterbury about 110,000, and the police department roughly then 300. But by the way, they just are in the process of approving 15 more, so they'll go to 315. I had, as the police chief, I had one person for my office alone, with the management for the upper management, 3 IT just for the PD, and a part-timer just for the police department alone. And that was before the body cams, the dash cams, and everything else. I came here in 2018. So I think that can provide some perspective on the importance of this and the nuances here. So I don't know much more I can add to what I previously said. You've never heard me speak like this before regarding a position. It's needed. And I ask for the public and everyone else just to trust that I know what I'm saying. And I'm not here trying to over exaggerate or anything else. Today is a prime example of that. We have several areas of exposure that can't be done. Jared and I have spoken, and for the public, Jared's the IT director, regarding this and how we can leverage things, but it's just not enough bodies, period.
Okay, thank you for that response. And then
Madam
the other
Chair,
question.
I can add to that as well, just in terms of staffing in our IT department. So we have 4.5 full-time employees in our IT department who are responsible for IT infrastructure town-wide. So we have 2 IT specialists. We have a manager who oversees both the schools and the town IT staffs, and then we have a network engineer as well. So we are very lean operation within our IT department, which I think we all, recognize. And we have the IT budget presentation for Monday. So certainly Jared would support what the chief is saying, and I do as well. I know and when he says a single point of failure, we that's where we are. We have that in several areas where, we've decreased in full-time staffing over the last 20 years. And, when you go to the level that we're at now, that's what we deal with. And if something were to happen with the position with the current employee within the police department, that would be it would be a very difficult challenge to overcome. And it would, obviously mean moving someone over from Jared's operation, which would certainly impact our ability to meet IT changes or needs townwide, but also just to get that person up and running. The technology, and we've all, I think most of us have been through the police department over the last 12 months and witnessed firsthand the change in technology. And I won't get into it. The chief did a great job of talking about the body cameras and our network center over there, and the cameras that are literally everywhere and increasing weekly, so that we can continue to protect our community and keep it safe. So, but we've had a lot of, the chief and I have had a lot of conversations. I don't want to get into too much detail about it, but we come up with creative solutions. I'm confident that we'll be able to find a solution here, while also recognizing the significant budget challenge that we're facing. And the Board of Education adopted their budget on Tuesday night. That factors into what we are going to be working on over the next couple of weeks to get our tax increase down. So it's not at a rate that any of us are happy with right now. And that's what we'll do. But we will, we're nothing if we're not creative. So and we always have been. So we will find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ludwig, and thank you, Chief Riddick. So, Chief Riddick, I do have one more question for you regarding the FOI and the records division department. Can you just speak real quickly? I'm trying to be mindful of the time in terms of the turnaround for the staff in that department when responding to an FOI request, because I do know that there are some timelines in terms of response that goes with that.
The simple answer is, even with the timelines, it's all request driven. For example, there's a incident that's going on, and there's an FOI request we've been working on for 6 months. And it's just the nature of it. There's so much involved in everything else. Other times it's just a simple report. People aren't requesting the body cam, and you can have that done in less than 24 hours. And sometimes if a person sends it in, the record people would turn it over in less than an hour and get it out. So it's all dependent upon the amount or the extent of the request. Everybody doesn't make a request for the body cam and the dash cam. Some people do. Many people do now. In addition, subpoenas, I talked about the FOI. I don't have the subpoena numbers, the amount of subpoenas that come in from court, civil suits, accidents. And when it comes to that, there's always a request for the body cam and the dash cam. So I can't give you, I hope you understand, it's always request driven.
Thank you. And I understand that. I think it's important for the listening audience to hear the amount of time and personnel that it takes from the PD to get a lot of the things done, not just patrol that we see on our streets when responding to whether it's motor vehicle accidents or some other crimes or criminal nature, but there's a lot of administrative and internal work that needs to be done and needs to be done timely. And I know many people in town, just at different events or just when talking, feels though, oh, do we need so many police? Maybe we don't need as many police that we have. Maybe we need to reduce our police department. And so I just think it's important for members of the audience to hear the intricacy and the detail and the time that it takes, and the expertise and training that is required statutorily, and the sensitivity of what you do and why it's important to have adequate staffing. So I just wanted to really throw that out there for everybody to understand. So when discussions are, being talked up, people need to take that into consideration as well. So I want to thank you for the comprehensive report. I want to thank you and your team for what you do each and every day, the rank and file, and the work that they do. As I said last night, I know when you go into this field of public safety, you're passionate about doing this. This is something that you want to do, you look forward to do, and when you train and enter training, and I know as a leader, when you select these folks, you are hoping that they make it through. But even all of that is very intensive as well. Again, we want the best and the brightest that's out there performing this work and providing services to our town. So again, thank you for what you do, and also to you, Chief Priest, and your crew as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you really quick, and another, Sandra and Assistant Chief Terry just reminded me of this, especially with the subpoenas. It's not just us. Our Corp Counsel has to review those body cam and stuff too, so it impacts their division also. It's just a lot of work because you really can't make a mistake.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm still scrolling just to make sure that we're covered with questions and comments before we move on to communications, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Ledwith. We probably don't have any, but I'll still turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing under communications this morning, and I know we've taken up a lot of your time, but appreciate everyone's suggestions and feedback on this budget, and we will continue working overall as we have a couple more weeks before our final budget adoption on the 22nd. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to assume that we don't have any communications because we just had almost an hour and 45 minutes of communications, staff reports. Any future agenda items? No. Okay, so we stand adjourned at 9:47. May I have a motion to do so? I don't know. I don't think Alberto can hear.
So moved.
Okay, now
So
second.
moved. Seconded.
Okay.
I move
All
in
right,
second.
everyone, thank you so much for the meeting and the budget presentation. So have a wonderful day, and as always, watch each other's backs.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.